Naruto's manga is comprised of 18 story arcs. 5 in part 1 of Naruto, and 13 in Shippuden. And because there's so many story arcs, if you went out and asked your average Naruto fan what's the best story arc in all of Naruto's manga or its anime, you'd probably get a wide diversity of answers. Now, you'd probably hear some answers more often than others, because like with any story, Naruto has its good moments, its great moments, and its not so great moments. But even though you would find a relatively wide diversity of people saying that different story arcs are their favorite, there is still a pretty large consensus amongst the Naruto fandom about which story arcs are good and which are bad. Unless, of course, you write about anime for a living, because recently, as in a couple of days ago, I was sent an article written by one of our favorite websites, Comic Book. And just like with every single time I'm sent an article by Comic Book, I'm starting to wonder if my take that we shouldn't be replacing human jobs with AI is really gonna hold up for much longer, because seemingly humans aren't doing a great job at their jobs either. See, this article titled All Naruto Arcs Ranked from Worst to Best is one of the most confoundingly stupid articles about Naruto I've ever interacted with. And while obviously all opinions are valid because opinions are subjective, man alive, are these opinions bad? Like, so bad, I legitimately wonder if they just wrote down all 18 of these story arcs, put them in a hat, and started pulling them out and describing them. But I figured my fury over this article would be a fantastic time for me to do something that I've actually never done before, which is rank all of the 18 story arcs of Naruto. Yeah, I know, I can't believe I haven't done it either. And thus, there's never been a better time to dive into a video I should have made years ago in order to celebrate me being back in the States. So with no further ado, let's dive directly into all 18 story arcs of Naruto, ranked and explained. But before we get to ranking or explaining anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you guys are looking for one additional NC Hammer 23 video every single week, guys, you can go ahead and find my Naruto reaction series using the fourth wall link in my description below. I'm home now, so I'm back on the series. So, this article, it starts so bad, I genuinely believe it might be bait, because it's just completely wrought with issues and borderline nonsensical at moments. On top of that, they have the wrong name for like half of the story arcs. The structure of today's video is going to be me going over the ranking of the 18 story arcs in Naruto, and then after I go over what happened in the arc, why I believe it deserves to be in that spot, what either made the arc great or terrible, and so on and so forth, I'll then at that point cross-reference where this article that kicked off this entire video placed that arc that I'm currently placing in a certain spot. But in order to give you the best peek behind the curtain as to why this article made me so viscerally upset, the first arc that they rank, that is to say their last place choice, coming in at number 18, is the Sasuke recovery arc. You know, the arc where Naruto, Choji, Kiba, Shikamaru, and Neji team up together to try and get Sasuke back? The arc that not only features Naruto and Sasuke's first fight at the Valley of the End, but also Drunk Rock Lee versus Kimimaru, not to mention Choji versus Jirobo, Kiba versus Sakan and Ukon, Shikamaru versus Tayuya, Neji versus Kidomaru. Yes, it's an incredibly straightforward arc, but it's also still one of the best arcs in Naruto. It's top 5 easily, and they put it at 18. And if that doesn't help you to understand my blind fury, I don't know what will. Anyways, moving on, let's get into our own list. Because coming up at number 18 on our list, in last place, ranking and explaining all of the 18 story arcs of Naruto, we have the Tenchi Reconnaissance Mission arc. Listen, there are no truly terrible manga canon story arcs in Naruto, but this one's close. This arc heavily focuses on the reformation of Team 7 with Sai and Yamato, and therefore it focuses on Team 7's wariness of Sai as a member of the Root now thrust onto their team, and introduces Yamato as a way to suppress Naruto's Kurama-fueled rampages. And while this arc does have some high moments, like a four-tailed Naruto battling it out against the armless Orochimaru as to summon triple Rashomon gates to block a tailed beast ball, or the introduction introduction of the Root and Danzo as a figure in the shadows trying to pull at all the strings of Konoha, and probably most pertinently, Team 7 for the first time in the time skip coming face to face with Sasuke, as Sasuke revealed his new level of power to the new Team 7, utterly trouncing every single one of them, and only sparing Naruto's life because Orochimaru urged him not to kill him. At the end of the day, this arc is heavily focused on Sai as a character, his battle with his raising in the Root, Kabuto's betrayal of Konoha as a double agent against the Leaf, and Kabuto's introduction as the most boring possible replacement for Kakashi we could ever imagine. While yes, there are some great moments in this arc, fundamentally, a lot of the time in this arc that should have been dedicated to important characters like Sakura, Sasuke, Naruto, Kakashi, was dedicated to characters that, well, I like, are just not all that important in Sai and Yamato. And thus, the Tenchi reconnaissance mission gets our number 18 spot, just barely edging out our number 17 spot, because coming up at number 17 on our list, ranking all 18 of Naruto's story arcs, we have the Fourth Great Shinobi World War, Confrontation. Now, for those of you who don't know, there are 3 manga story arcs that are named after the Fourth Great Shinobi World War: Countdown, Confrontation, and Climax. And Confrontation is by far and away the worst out of all of them. See, the confrontation part of the Fourth Great Shinobi World War focuses on the Shinobi Alliance's battle against a legion of Edo Tensei soldiers. The Seven Swordsmen are brought back to life, the Akatsuki are brought back to life, the Jinchuriki are brought back to life as 6 Paths of Pain, Kinkaku, Ginkaku, the previous Kage. And while we do get some somewhat cool moments, like Kakashi having to fight with Zabuza and Haku again, Team 10 having to fight Asuma, Choji and Choza battling it out with the Ghetto statue, and the introduction of KCM1 Naruto when he's able to break out of the control of all of his guards and make his way over to the war, which does subjectively lead to one of the cooler fights in all of Naruto, which is KCM1 Naruto, Edo Itachi and Killer Bee versus Edo Nagato. But if I'm being real with you, this is a long arc, and that is really the only shining moment in all of it. Oh, Nick, what about Gaara versus Rasa, or Naruto using Froggy Kumite against the third Raikage to direct his lightning stab into his own shoulder? I mean, yeah, these are cool-ish moments, but none of it really means anything. This entire arc is kind of just recycling past villains or bringing back past good guys to force them to fight against their friends. All the while with Kishimoto not having the balls to bring back the person that everybody wanted him to bring back, which was Jiraiya. So is this arc stuffed to the gills with a ton of fights? Yes, obviously, Darui fights against Kinkaku and Ginkaku. Mifune and Hanzo run it back one last time. And so much more. You'd be lying to yourself if you said that this arc was even remotely close to memorable. It's a setup arc that happened after a setup arc for the Fourth Great Shinobi World War, because it's not until the end of this arc that Madara's even introduced. But since we're talking about the Fourth Great Shinobi World War, we might as well stick with it, because coming up at number 16 on our list of ranking all of 18 of Naruto's story arcs, we have Kaguya Otsutsuki Strikes, also known as the last story arc of Naruto. Listen, this arc is not good either. The only reason I have this arc above Confrontation is because Naruto and Sasuke's fight at the end of the story might legitimately be the best fight in the entire story. It carries the most weight, the animation is some of the best we've ever seen, the choreography is definitely the best we've ever seen, and it ends in a really heartfelt and emotional way that ties together the entirety of Naruto's story. Everything else but that fight, booty cheeks. This fight is the encapsulation of everything that went wrong in Shippuden. Naruto and Sasuke have to use their newfound abilities that were just gifted to them by Sky Ninja Jesus to defeat a character that's basically introduced out of nowhere after, mind you, the villain who's been propped up as the final baddie throughout the entirety of this manga just got one shot through a surprise feat. And listen, you're talking to Boruto's #1 fan. I'm okay with the existence of Kaguya and the existence of the Otsutsuki, but you'd be lying to yourself if you said that Team 7 versus Kaguya is a good fight. It's not. It's Kaguya using Yamatsu Hirasaka to pop between a bunch of different dimensions, both Naruto and Sasuke realizing they can track it, Kaguya literally pulling out moves that have nothing to do with chakra, at least so far as we understood it in that moment, where she is ripping parts of dimensions to her current location to change entire battlefields. Obito dies, turns back into a child, somehow gives his 6 paths chakra to Kakashi, and Kakashi immediately unlocks a perfect Susanoo that Obito did not have access to. Naruto and Sasuke then seal the final villain of the story using abilities gifted to them that they immediately lose after after sealing this villain, just in time for us to realize that Madara was a puppet the entire time, a puppet being piloted by Black Zetsu, a complete non-character throughout the entirety of Naruto's story. Like I said, this arc would probably be in last place if it did not also include Naruto versus Sasuke, a fight that, mind you, was not without its own problems. Naruto makes a 3-faced, 6-armed, 27-tailed Kurama avatar, but pretty lights go burr. Now, after the final arc of Naruto, we head all the way back to part 1 of Naruto. Because our number 15 spot in our rankings of all 18 of Naruto's story arcs, we have the Search for Tsunade arc. Listen, I'm sorry, but this is the worst arc in part 1 of Naruto. Yes, it's got some fun bits, like Itachi telling Kurenai that that level of genjutsu doesn't work on me, Might Guy versus Kisame for the first ever time, Sasuke thinking that his newfound Chidori is gonna finally give him the leg up on Itachi and very quickly finding out that it will not, and maybe more importantly than anything, Naruto learning the Rasengan and then using it eventually on Kabuto. But like, this is a training arc. Yes, obviously we're searching for Tsunade, and Tsunade is a very important character who gets fleshed out to a very high degree over the course of this arc. We learn about her hemophobia, why she defected from the village, how she lost her little brother and Dan, and how she sees a lot of the men that she loved in Naruto. We also see her dealing with her grief as Kabuto and Orochimaru try to recruit her to their cause with the promise that they have a jutsu that will allow for her to see Dan once again. But really, nothing about this arc outside of Itachi's moment with Kurenai and Naruto's battle against Kabuto is all that memorable. But it is still an arc that's very pivotal for the plot, as it not only introduces Tsunade as the 5th Hokage, but it also helps Sasuke realize that all of this newfound strength that he's received with his Chidori doesn't measure up to what Itachi already holds, thus pushing him ever closer to the snaky, scaly embrace of Orochimaru. But don't worry, all of you who are clutching your pearls at the concept that any of the story arcs in part 1 of Naruto could be that low, we're going back to Shippuden. Because at number 14 on our list, ranking all 18 story arcs of Naruto, we have the Itachi Pursuit mission. Just another kind of mid-arc. I mean, if we were choosing most forgettable arcs, not just like straight up bad arcs, this might be number 1. Oh, Nick, what do you mean? This is the arc that Sasuke fights against Deidara. You're right, it is. But the arc where Sasuke summons a snake that hates him with no chakra left to tank the final explosion of a guy whose entire abilities revolve around explosions being the thing that you need to remember this arc for kind of proves my point that it's forgettable. See, because outside of Sasuke versus Deidara, this arc opens up with Sasuke killing Orochimaru in one of the least climactic battles that take place in all of Shippuden, on account of the fact that Orochimaru was literally in their deathbed, like actually in bed. And then is followed up by Sasuke forming Hebi, which I know you don't care about, and then Naruto putting together a somehow even less useful team than Hebi, when Naruto puts together an 8-man squad to try and hunt down Itachi to find him before Sasuke can. Something that, mind you, they don't achieve. And the closest thing that they're able to pull off is having Naruto basically lose in combat to one of Itachi's clones. But hey, at least we got that sequence of Sasuke using electricity on his whole body to mitigate the explosive factor of all of the explosive clay that he had inhaled. But enough about forgettable arcs. Let's get to arcs that are a mix of really good moments and really bad moments. Like our number 13 pick, because coming up at number 13 on our list, ranking all 18 story arcs of Naruto, we have the birth of the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. Kind of like with all war arcs, a lot happens in this one. See, this arc opens with the introduction of Obito as an unstable Ten Tails Jinchuriki. And from that reveal, we get a somewhat fun, somewhat forgettable battle between the previous Hokage, Naruto in his KCM2 mode, and Sasuke. EMS Sasuke, not 6-Tome Rinnegan Sasuke. And like I said, there is some fun moments in here, like Minato and Tobirama using each other's flying Raijin seals to allow for Naruto and Sasuke to lay a barrage into the front of Obito's chest. Or Minato and Naruto working together as father and son, as the two halves of Kurama are brought back together. We also get Naruto and Sasuke combining to make a majestic attire Susanoo that they use to pull all of the nine-tailed beasts out of Obito. But if we're being real, a lot of that fight against Obito pales in comparison to what we got after Obito was defeated. See, because it's not really until Obito is forced to revive Madara by Black Zetsu that this arc starts to kick into gear. Because Madara immediately just starts mogging everybody around him. He knocks all 9 of the tailed beasts onto their butts and immediately pulls them into the Geto statue by controlling it with his Rinnegan. He, while blind, stabs Sasuke through the heart and kills him. He yanks half of Kurama out of Naruto and kills him. But just when things look especially bad, as Madara steps into his Shubidara form, the Red Bull of the Leaf emerges in Might Guy, using his 8 gates in combination with Rock Lee, Minato, and Kakashi to take the offensive to the strongest opponent we've ever seen. And this fight is great, and Madara should have died in it. However, instead, Madara doesn't die after being kicked in half by a kick that bent space-time, and rather, Naruto and Sasuke are visited by Sky Ninja Jesus, who reveals, oh yeah, you guys are the reincarnations of my sons. And so, you know, here's this power that for some reason I didn't give you earlier, in what is objectively what I believe to be one of Kishimoto's dumbest writing decisions ever. But is it as dumb as putting Sakura into another situation where she fails to be even remotely useful? I don't know. I'll leave that up to you, because Sakura's inability for some reason to stab Obito in his Rinnegan leads to Madara, who's getting absolutely trounced with just one Rinnegan by the new Naruto and Sasuke, to get his second and therefore third Rinnegan, leading to the launching of Infinite Tsukiyomi and the reveal of Kaguya. So like I said, there are some great moments in this arc, but there's also some really bad ones. And thus, I really can't put it all that high. In fact, I can't even put it higher than the arc that came directly before it, because coming up at our number 12 spot, ranking all 18 of Naruto's story arcs, we have the 4th Great Shinobi World War, Climax. It's a long arc, and it's filled with a lot of really great moments. I mean, this arc literally opens with Madara sprinting towards the entirety of the Shinobi Alliance and just piecing up guys one after one with his bare hands for the love of the game. He takes that personally and decides to start aura farming by calling a couple of meteors. Meteoric strikes that lead to some of the greatest lines maybe in anime history. But it's not just what will you do about the second one, Inoki, or is this the power of a god that make the beginning of this arc incredible. It's also watching how one man's fire release needs to be put out by an entire legion of water release users from the Shinobi Alliance. The boogeyman we had heard about for the entirety of the story was living up to his own hype, and that was awesome. And he continued to live up to his own hype as he battled against all 5 of the current Kage simultaneously, toying with them to the point that he trashed them so bad when he used his real Susanoo, they didn't even show us. They just showed the carnage left behind as all of the Kage laid dying on the ground after the reveal of his perfect Susanoo. However, unfortunately, a pretty large part of this arc does focus on a thing that a lot of you have probably forgotten, which is KCM1 Naruto Kakashi and Might Guy's battle against White Mask Obito, and more specifically his 6 paths of pain. And while there are some fun moments here, like Naruto unlocking KCM2 and using it to battle against all the other jinchuriki alongside Gyuki, it's kind of just the forgettable setup portion of this arc to establish Naruto's connection to all the other tailed beasts. Now after that, however, we do get Edo Itachi and Sasuke versus Kabuto, which is a very fun fight, which not only gets to reveal just how powerful Itachi could have been if he wasn't hindered by his chakra disease, but also unveils the counter to Izanagi, Izanami, while talking about the concept of trying to rewrite your own fate through the medium of Kabuto's backstory, sneakily revealing one of the more interesting characters in Naruto. We then, after Kabuto is defeated, get Itachi's final send-off to Sasuke, which is one of the more emotional moments of just the entire manga, but then immediately follow it up by the releasing of Edo Tensei just being rejected by Madara because he knows the hand seals. Absolutely asinine writing. However, fortunately, the arc does wrap up with the reveal of Obito's face under his white mask, and not only Obito's backstory and therefore the reveal of what happened on that fateful night with Rin, but also Kakashi versus Obito, which I genuinely believe to either be the greatest fight in Naruto or the second greatest fight in Naruto. It changes day by day. And then the Hokage come back to life, which is a cool moment as we see Tobirama lifting one finger and everybody in the room literally pissing themselves, and Neji dies, which, like, who cares? But now that we've covered almost all of the arcs during the 4th Great Shinobi World War, let's step away from it for 1 second to talk about our number 11 spot, because coming up at number 11 on our list, ranking all 18 story arcs of Naruto, we have the Akatsuki suppression arc, also known as the Hidan, Kakuzu, and Rasen Shuriken arc. Listen, this is not a long arc, and I feel like some of you are going to get a little bit confused here because you're thinking to yourself, wait, how are you going to put the Akatsuki suppression arc above the climax arc? when way more happened in the climax arc. And that's where you and I are separated ideologically. See, sure, a lot happened in the climax arc, as it should. It is 4 times longer than the Akatsuki suppression arc. However, just because a lot more happened doesn't mean that it's a better arc. I'm basing my rankings off not only what happened, but also the impact of those moments and the pacing of those moments. Was the story scattered? Was it concise? Was it memorable? Do people talk about it? And the Akatsuki suppression arc is one of the more memorable arcs in all of Naruto. See, because, well, yes, there is a whole lot of training that goes on during the course of this arc, as Naruto tries to find a long-range alternative to his favorite jutsu, the Rasengan, and thus he goes from person to person, trying to ascertain how to use his wind release and add it into his Rasengan. And we get entire episodes and entire chapters of him sitting under a waterfall and trying to cut it in half with wind release. The real star of this arc is obviously Hidan, and I guess to a lesser extent, Kakuzu. See, because it's in this arc that we finally see Konoha fighting back against the Akatsuki, when it becomes clear that the Akatsuki are hunting down the Jinchuriki, and therefore one day will set their sights on Naruto. Konoha decides to take the offensive, and when that offensive is aimed against 2 members of the Akatsuki who are floating around the land of fire, Hidan and Kakuzu, things go wrong. See, because as Team 10 tries to take on the zombie duo without sufficient information about their abilities, the first real major loss of a significant character in the story is experienced with Asuma. And it's from this moment on we get some of the most hard-hitting, emotionally impactful scenes in all of Naruto, as we see Shikamaru go through all of the stages of grief, disbelief, anger, and eventually plotting, as Shikamaru, Team 10, Kakashi, and Naruto all plan their get back on Kakuzu and Hidan. And get back they do. See, not only do we get some incredibly choreographed taijutsu from Kakashi and Kakuzu as they battle it out in a hand-to-hand brawl, but also we get the reveal of maybe the best thought-out plan in ninja history, as Shikamaru lures the immortal Hidan to his grave. And between that and the reveal of the Rasen Shuriken, which would become a staple of Naruto's arsenal, there really is no truly bad parts in the Akatsuki suppression arc. But with that, we've made it to our number 10 spot, because coming up at number 10 on our list, ranking all 18 of Naruto's story arcs, we have the Kazekage rescue arc. This was a great arc, and a great reintroduction to Naruto in the Shippuden era. See, not only does it open up with a reveal that Gaara's now the Kazekage, but it is also an incredible way to kick off the idea that the Akatsuki is trying to kidnap the Jinchuriki. Because what better way to display exactly that than to show us the one non-main character, Jinchuriki, just swept in the literal last arc before this, that being the Sasuke retrieval arc, to save the day not only for Rock Lee but also for Naruto as they struggled in battle against Kimimaru, getting kidnapped by the Akatsuki while he tried to defend the village that hated him for so long, and having the tailed beast that was forcefully placed in him by his father ripped out of him, leading to his death. The tension in this arc is palpable. Not only is Gaara versus Deidara an incredible fight, as Sasori completely trounces Kankuro in a battle of puppets, but while watching and reading it, I had real legitimate fear that when Gaara was being swept away by Deidara, he was truly gone forever. Not to mention when Konoha dispatches forces with Team 7 and Team Guy to go save Gaara's life before the ritual of pulling Shukaku out of him is completed. We get to see Team 7 versus Itachi and Team Guy versus Kisame. And while sure they're just fighting 30% clones, these fights truly display how terrifying the Akatsuki can be. But obviously, the true piece de resistance of this entire arc is Granny Chiyo and Sakura versus Sasori. The Chikamatsu puppets and Sakura of Granny Chiyo versus the 300 puppets of Sasori. A fight that leads to the first death of a member of the Akatsuki, with Sasori skewering his own core with his parents' puppets, and Granny Chiyo, one of the most iconic, short-lived characters in all of Naruto, giving her life to bring back Gaara's. Not to mention Kakashi literally rips off Deidara's arm with Kamui, which is just an incredible moment. And thus, once again, this is another one of those arcs that isn't crazy long, but everything that happens is not only memorable, but also impactful. Granted, Chiyo and Sasori's backstory is devastating. There's real-life stakes on the line as Gaara, a fan-favorite character, is slowly killed in front of us. And the threat of the Akatsuki becomes ever increasingly clear as we once again see Itachi and Kisame, but are also introduced to Deidara and Sasori. It was a fantastic way to start Shippuden, and I love this arc a lot. But not as much as I love Sneaky, the only actually good arc from the Fourth Great Shinobi World War, because coming up at number 9 on our list, ranking all 18 of Naruto's story arcs, we have the Fourth Great Shinobi World War, Countdown. Now, this might be my most controversial opinion on this entire list. This is not only the shortest out of all of the 4th grade Shinobi World War arcs, but also on account of the fact that it is called Countdown and not Confrontation or Climax, should tell you everything you need to know. That is to say that this arc serves as a set-up arc for the 4th grade Shinobi World War. But this arc has something that neither the Confrontation or the Climax arcs have, and that is emotion. See, this arc comes immediately after the 5 Kage Summit arc, which ends when Sasuke kills Danzo, and thus it actually opens up with Naruto, Kakashi, and Sakura trying to kill Sasuke after he's cut down the Shadow Hokage. We see Kakashi battling it out with a heavily depleted Sasuke, Sakura struggling to will herself to kill Sasuke while his back is turned, and more importantly than really anything, the first real fight between Naruto and Sasuke that happens in Shippuden. However, after obviously Sasuke isn't killed in this fight and he's whisked away by Obito, you know, his sugar daddy, it's at this moment that true preparation for the incoming war begins. Tsunade awakes from her coma that happened during the pain assault. The 5 Kage meet once again and talk about confining the rest of the jinchuriki to hide them from the Akatsuki. However, Tsunade pounds the table and says that they need Naruto's power to win. Tobi forms an alliance with Kabuto after Kabuto reveals to him Madara's body, and lines in the sand are drawn. And once these lines in the sand are drawn, we get to what is objectively a forgettable part of this arc, but also a forgettable part of this arc that's filled with some really hard-hitting emotional moments, which is the Nine Tails controlling training part of this arc. You know, where Naruto is sent to the Waterfall of Truth and has to battle against the dark version of himself. And while this battle definitely isn't in the top 10 or maybe even top 100 of battles that happen in Naruto, the subsequent moments that come out of Naruto's subconscious battling it out with Kurama inside of him, and Kurama's hatred leaking into Naruto as Kurama tries to break through the vessel that is Naruto to escape once and for all, being reversed by what is essentially one of my favorite moments in all of Naruto, that is to say, Naruto meeting Kushina for the first time, I think really carries what is otherwise a kind of weak part of the story. See, because with the introduction of Kushina, who's able to strip Naruto of all of Kurama's hatred, we not only begin to better understand how the 8 Tricram seal works, something that would obviously be fleshed out more in Minato's one-shot, but also, we get to see his son meet his mother for the first time. And we get to hear from Kushina about how Kushina fell in love with Naruto's father, Minato. And then we get to see an incredibly touching moment. Kushina and Naruto work together to defeat Kurama. And the same way that we would see Kushina and Minato work together to defeat Kurama inside of Kushina during Minato's one-shot. And thus, with Kurama's defeat, Naruto unlocks KCM1. But if that wasn't enough for you, immediately after Naruto defeats Kurama, we get to reveal that Kisame had snuck onto this island by hiding himself in Samehara. And thus we get Killer Bee and Might Guy versus Kisame, the final fight in the Might Guy versus Kisame trilogy. And by far and away, the best fight. A fight where Might Guy opens all the way up to the 7th gate to use things like his daytime tiger to destroy Kisame's great shark bullet techniques with just compressed air. But if even that wasn't enough, immediately after that, we get Obito versus Konan, a battle for Nagato's Rinnegan. And while yes, unfortunately the end of this fight reveals Izanagi as a concept, which I believe is Kishimoto's worst ever writing mistake, the emotion behind Konan, the woman who's been running the village hidden in the rain for the last decade, not only defending her home village, but also her last remaining friend's body from the man who corrupted the idea of the Akatsuki that she and her 2 now deceased friends had years ago, has some of the most emotionally hard-hitting moments in all of Naruto. Whether it was Konan opening a sea of paper bombs or her untimely defeat at the hands of a grievously wounded Obito, to this day, Obito versus Konan is one of the most memorable fights in all of Naruto to me. And thus, Countdown gets our number 9 spot. But since we're talking about dying in the Hidden Rain Village, we might as well talk about our number 8 spot, because coming up at number 8 on our list, ranking all of Naruto's 18 story arcs, we have The Tale of Jiraiya the Gallant. Now, this arc is only 16 chapters long, and yet it features one of, if not the most impactful fights in all of Naruto, Jiraiya versus the 6 Paths of Pain. And there is nothing to not like about this fight outside of the fact that Jiraiya could have very easily escaped after he killed the animal path for a second time. He was like, oh, I need to confirm the suspicion that I have that all of the paths of pain are piloted bodies of corpses being controlled from somewhere else. Like, hey man, just tell everybody else your hypothesis, like with your mouth, instead of carving it into the back of Fukakusu. But like, what do I really need to say about this arc? The entire arc is Jiraiya versus the 6 paths of pain. Whether it's Jiraiya battling it out with the animal path in the very beginning, activating his sage mode, fusing Ma and Pa to his shoulders to circulate nature energy into his body, using demonic toad confrontation chant to kill 3 of the paths of pain all simultaneously, or the reveal that even after they're killed, so long as the Naraka path is still alive, they can be brought back to life. This fight is incredible, and it ends in devastating fashion as Naruto's father figure is impaled by 6 chakra rods in his back and sent to sink to the bottom of an ocean, thinking about how he would have changed his life if he had been given the opportunity. It is undoubtedly the most important and the most talked about death in all of Naruto, and it paved the way for Naruto versus Nagato, which we'll get to eventually. Before we get to it, we gotta go back to part 1 of Naruto, because coming up at number 7 on our list, ranking all 18 story arcs of Naruto, we have the Konoha Crush arc. Listen, Naruto got a little shaky after the conclusion of the Chunin exams. Now, it course corrected by the time we got to the Sasuke retrieval arc, but going from the Konoha Crush arc to the Search for Tsunade arc was a tough one too. Now, the Konoha Crush arc is way better than the Search for Tsunade arc, clearly evidenced by the fact that it's at number 7 when the Search for Tsunade arc is at number 15, but we're lying to ourselves if we say that the Konoha Crush arc is a top 5 arc in all of Naruto. The Konoha Crush arc really boils down to 2 fights. Hiruzen versus Orochimaru, and Naruto versus Gaara. And while both of these fights are important, impactful, and pretty good at moments, one of them is clearly better than the other, and that one is Naruto versus Gaara. See, while Orochimaru versus Hiruzen has its moments, like Hiruzen hucking tiles at Orochimaru, or Orochimaru summoning the first and second Hokage, and being stopped before he was able to summon the third, or Hiruzen needing to run from Hashirama's wood release using his adamantite staff, which turns into Monkey King Enma, there are some great moments in Orochimaru versus Hiruzen. However, there's also some not so great moments, like the 30-episode struggle of Hiruzen trying to pull Orochimaru's soul out of his chest while Orochimaru tried to pull a sword through Hiruzen's. But still, the reveal of Hiruzen's strength, even at the ripe old age of 68, was really cool to see after hearing about how powerful he was over the course of the 100 or so episodes that led to this moment. I mean, after all, in the lead up to this moment, we had heard that he was the strongest person in the Leaf, and the god of shinobi, and the professor, all of things he lived up to as he yanked in Hiruzen and Tobirama's souls and cut off Orochimaru's arms. But the true meat of this arc comes from Sasuke and Naruto both individually trying to hunt down Gaara. Because sure, we get some cool sideline fights like Shino versus Kankuro, and all the adults like Inochi, Choza, Kakashi, and Might Guy versus Hidden Sand or Hidden Sound Shinobi. The most important thing happening over the course of the Konoha Crush arc is Sasuke realizing that even with his Chidori, he's still not strong enough to defeat Gaara. See, because even though his Chidori is able to slice through Gaara's partially transformed arm twice, his sand simply recovers, while Sasuke, who's trying not to rely on the power of the cursed mark, begins to fade in strength. And it's at this moment, as Sasuke begins to fade as Gaara closes in for a killing attack, that Naruto, for the last time before Sasuke's defection, saves Sasuke. And as this fight continues on, we see Naruto using all of the tricks in his bag as Gaara continues through his transformations, until eventually Gaara puts himself to sleep and summons the full form of Shikaku, something that Naruto's only able to take on after summoning Gamabunta and turning him into Kurama. But it's not until Naruto throws one final desperate headbutt into Gaara's head and wakes him up that this fight between 2 jinchurikis forced into their situations comes to a close. And it's in this moment as Naruto crawls towards Gaara that we begin to see the change happening in Gaara's life, establishing one of Naruto's greatest jutsus for the first ever time, Talk no Jutsu. But enough about part 1 of Naruto, let's head back to Shippuden for our number 6 spot, which is kind of ironic because coming up at number 6 on our list of ranking all 18 of Naruto's story arcs, we have the 5 Kage Summit. See, this arc's kind of got it all. It's got plotting from Danzo as he tries to use the Kodo Matsukame against Mifune, to force Mifune as the impartial judge to say that Danzo is most suited to be the head of the Shinobi Alliance. It's got fear as we see Tobi effortlessly pull up on Naruto and start talking to him while he's rolled away from from the window. It's got scale as Sasuke clashes with all 5 of the Kage simultaneously, forcing the 4th Raikage to cut off one of his arms, needing to be saved from Inoki's particle style, and once again going toe-to-toe with an old foe in Gaara. But after the summit, we also see Killer B and A versus a fake version of Kisame that fuses with Samehada, getting double lariated with his head flying off. But by far and away, the most important part of the 5 Kage Summit arc comes at its very end. Sasuke versus Danzo. See, because after Danzo is outed by Ao at the 5 Kage Summit for trying to use genjutsu against Mifune, while on the run back to Konoha for safety, Danzo is hunted down by Sasuke as Obito grabs his left and right hand men and kills them off somewhere else. And thus the 1v1 of the century begins, as Danzo reveals to Sasuke an arm filled with Sharingan. Sharingan he stole from the Uchiha after they were cut down by his brother who he forced to eradicate his entire clan for his safety. See, this is a moment for revenge, a rare moment where we as the viewer are rooting for Sasuke, as in this moment he is fighting against somebody truly much more evil than him. And this fight is brutal, as Danzo rips through Sharingan using Izanagi over and over again. He dies in increasingly horrific ways, like having a Susanoo arrow shot through his chest, or being squeezed to death by a skeletal Susanoo fist. And even though Danzo puts up a good fight, ripping through every single one of his Sharingan, ironically a Sharingan is what brings about Danzo's defeat, as Sasuke tricked Danzo into believing that he had one Sharingan left to use Izanagi, when in actuality, it was already gone. And thus we were served to one of the greatest moments in all of Naruto, not just Shippuden, as a heavily injured Danzo tried to run for his life, while a bloody-eyed Sasuke walked him down. And while, yes, once again, Sasuke had to be saved by Obito to not be killed by Danzo's final kamikaze attack. Even though that aggravates me, it doesn't take away from the incredibleness of this moment. But since we're talking about Sasuke being spared by his opponents, let's get to our number 5 spot. Because coming up at number 5 on our list, ranking all 18 story arcs of Naruto, we have the fated battle between brothers. Another relatively short arc that took place directly after Jiraiya the Gallant. This entire arc focuses pretty much entirely on the battle between Sasuke and Itachi, a battle that we had been waiting to see since the very earliest days of Naruto. And even though the context of this entire fight kind of ruins it a little bit, as it's revealed that Itachi was really only fighting Sasuke to make him use all of his chakra so he could lure Orochimaru out of him and kill him once and for all, that doesn't mean what happens over the course of this fight isn't awesome. See, whether it's the genjutsu battle between Sasuke and Itachi that opens the fight, as Sasuke believes even without using his curse mark that he's already defeated Itachi just to get pointed towards Itachi still sitting on his throne, or the clash of fire style between the two brothers as Itachi's Amaterasu flames begin to burn away at the great fireball release of Sasuke. There's something for everybody in this fight. And even when things look incredibly bad for Sasuke as he uses his one shot of Kirin to hopefully eviscerate Itachi once and for all, Itachi emerges from the smoke, injured but clad in his Susanoo. A Susanoo that Sasuke has no answer for, but also a Susanoo that's not meant for him. See, because as Itachi walks down Sasuke, Sasuke relies on his curse mark, but when he does, Orochimaru takes the opportunity to fly out of his neck reborn as an 8-headed snake monster. But not for long, as Itachi takes the opportunity with the last vestiges of his chakra to jam his sword, his blade of Totsuka, through Orochimaru's chest, sealing him away for another couple hundred chapters. But even after Orochimaru has been defeated and Itachi dies of chakra overusage, the ripple effect of this fight is not yet done, as after Sasuke wakes from this battle with his brother, the victory he'd been hoping to claim his entire life, he's told by Obito the true story of Itachi, and in that moment, we, the readers, find out the sympathetic character that Itachi was. And thus, after hearing that his brother had actually been trying to defend him his entire life, Sasuke awakens his Monkey-Kyo Sharingan and begins his new mission, to destroy the leaf. Probably not what Itachi would have wanted, but I don't know, Itachi was really bad at sending concise messages. But since we're talking about Sasuke, and more specifically trying to get Sasuke back to the leaf, let's get to our number 4 spot. Because coming up at number 4 on our list, ranking all of Naruto's 18 story arcs, we have the Sasuke retrieval arc. Yeah, there's a pretty big delta between 4 and 18, and I'm aware I haven't been talking about the article. I'll do it later. Listen, as to how you could sit down and genuinely call the Sasuke retrieval arc the worst story arc in all of Naruto, I will never understand. This arc is awesome. And what it lacks in terms of like emotional hard-hitting moments, it makes up for with just objectively sweet fights. See, because in this arc, the literal first fight we get is the unveiling of Butterfly Mode as Choji fights against Jirobo. We also get the reveal of version 2 curse marks and the power that they can give, and we genuinely believe that Choji, one of the main characters of the story, is gonna die basically immediately after being introduced. We then get Neji versus Kitamura, which shows us just how powerful 8 trigrams can be, as Neji uses 8 trigrams, 64 palms to strike down thousands of spiders simultaneously, and uses rotation to keep all of the spiders and the arrows that Kitamura was firing at him away. And once again, we believe that one of the main characters has been fatally wounded as Kitamura blasts Neji with a mouth arrow that leaves a gigantic hole in his chest. We then get Shikamaru versus one of the strongest genjutsu users we've ever seen in Tayuya, and he has to be saved by Tamari, who cuts down an entire forest with her wind release and her weasel summoning. And while Sakan and Ukon versus Kiba isn't like the greatest fight of all time, when Kankuro steps in and throws those conjoined twins into a murder box, steps up a little bit, but those 4 fights being the appetizer fights of this arc should tell you just how incredible this arc was. Because ironically, the most talked about fight out of any of the fights in this arc isn't even the main fight. Because when you reveal that Rock Lee can not only walk, but also drunkenly box against apparently the strongest of the Sound Village 5 in Kimimaru, and then get Gaara stepping back into the story for the first time as a good guy, as the two of them still struggle to battle with Kimimaru, you make an instant classic fight. An instant classic fight that is somehow immediately usurped by a Kurama-enraged Naruto and a version 2 curse mark Sasuke going toe to toe. That features such great moments as Naruto punching the pupils out of Sasuke and the iconic Onyx Chidori versus Rasengan clash. This arc is incredible, and to give it any kind of ranking below top 5 is asinine. But don't worry, because we're not leaving part 1 of Naruto anytime soon, because coming up at number 3 on our list of ranking all 18 of Naruto's story arcs, we have the Chunin exams arc. Listen, I don't hold it against anybody who says that the Chunin exams arc is the best arc in all of Naruto. It's awesome. It's funny. There's twists, there's turns, there's great battles. Even the written section of the Chunin exams, which is objectively the worst section of all of the Chunin exams, is fun. As we see Shino using his bugs to cheat and Tenten controlling 8 very conspicuous mirrors to look at everybody else's answer cards. But obviously, the Chunin exams truly begin to swing into high gear with the Forest of Death, where we see Sasuke branded with a curse mark by Orochimaru, in what is effectively the best looking fight up until that moment in the story, mind you. We get the unveiling of the Sound siblings and how terrifying Gaara is as he literally juices a ninja from the hidden rain. We get Naruto stopping one of Orochimaru's snakes dead in its tracks, and Sasuke snapping Zaku's arms by tapping into the power of the curse mark. And it's immediately followed up by 9 preliminary matches, the final one-on-one matches, which feature some of the best fights in not only part 1 of Naruto, but also the entirety of Naruto, like Rock Lee versus Gaara, Sasuke versus Gaara, Neji versus Naruto, Zaku versus Shino, and so many others. And truly, the only weakness to the Chunin exams arc is the introduction of Jiraiya. It's like 8 straight episodes of like, ooh, girls, have you summoned a toad yet, Naruto? No? Okay. Ooh, girls. Jiraiya is just, he's exhausting when you rewatch Naruto. Don't worry, he eventually gets what's coming to him, which leads us to our number 2 spot, because coming up at number 2 on our list, ranking all 18 of Naruto's story arcs, we have the Pain Assault. Oh, Nick, you don't have the Pain Assault at number 1. What are you doing? Yeah, all right, you guys all know what my favorite arc in all of Naruto is. I've been talking about it for years. Doesn't mean that the Pain Assault's not awesome. It is, especially when you consider the fact that the Pain Assault arc actually starts with Taka versus Killer Bee, which is an awesome fight. And not just because Sasuke dies twice over the course of it, but because watching a fully realized jinchuriki fight with 8 swords is always going to be kind of sick. But yeah, obviously when it comes down to it, the best part of the Pain Assault arc is the Pain Assault, which obviously came in waves, as we saw Konoha trying to fight off pain by itself initially, as the Konoha higher-ups believed that placing Naruto in the front line of this battle against Nagato would jeopardize their plan to keep all of the jinchuriki tucked away where the Akatsuki couldn't get their hands on them, and thus systematically, either through almighty pushes or 1v1s, the 6 paths of pain, but mostly the Deva path, decimated Konoha. Something that became impossible to ignore as we saw one of the most prolific characters in all of Naruto succumb to chakra overusage in Kakashi. I consider the fact that we had just watched the Six Paths of Pain kill Jiraiya, watching the Devil Path fire and nail Kakashi that he kamui'd away at the last second using the last bits of his chakra, leading to his death, was, well, I'm gonna be honest with you, traumatic. However, that trauma was healed after Sakura hit the strongest summoning of all time and called out for Naruto's name, leading to Naruto being reverse summoned by the toads to Konoha alongside Ma, Pa, and 3 gigantic toads, Gamabunta very much included. However, even though Naruto was new and improved with his Sage Mode, and after being nailed to the ground by chakra rods like his predecessor before him, it wasn't until Hinata came to his aid and used her new twin lion fist to try and fight off the Deva Path and was subsequently killed by him that Naruto began to tap into the power of Kurama, awakening to 8 out of 9 tails before being saved by his father, who left a vestige of his chakra inside of the 8 trigram seal on Naruto's stomach. And thus, after being saved from a Kurama-related death, Naruto with a newly cleared head pushed the offensive on a Deva Path, found his weakness, and claimed victory. He then used his newfound sensory abilities from his Sage Mode to find Nagato's real body and busted out his favorite jutsu of all time, Talk no Jutsu, to convince Nagato to revive everyone he had killed in Konoha, leading to Nagato's death and Naruto being hailed as the savior of Konoha. But even though this arc is objectively perfect, to me, it's not as perfect as the first arc in all of Naruto, the Land of Waves. And therefore, coming up at number 1 on our list, ranking all of Naruto's 18 story arcs, I have the Land of Waves arc. Yes, the prologue, an arc that focuses on a newly formed Team 7 trying to work together for their first ever time to get a bridge builder back home. And to me, this arc has everything. It has the bell test. It has the introduction of the key characters of Naruto's story, Team 7. It has incredible fights like Kakashi versus Zabuza, part 1 and part 2. The reveal of Kurama's chakra inside of Naruto as he rages over what he believes is Sasuke's death. Haku sacrificing himself for Zabuza. Zabuza's tears as he cuts down Gato. And the unveiling of Naruto's true, greatest, and favorite jutsu, Talk no Jutsu, as he tells Zabuza to feel guilt for the death of Haku. To me, not only was the Land of Waves arc the perfect arc, but also the perfect introductory arc. And without it, I genuinely do not believe that Naruto would have seen the success that it knows today. And thus, if anybody ever asks me what my favorite arc in all of Naruto is, I'll always say the first one. But I'm curious to hear from you guys. What do you believe is the best arc in all of Naruto? Let me know in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. All right, the articles list was 18 Sasuke recovery missions, 17 search for Tsunade, 16 Tenchi bridge reconnaissance missions. So like, not bad. None of those are good arcs. 15, they called the 7 Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist. That's confrontation. Also not good. I said it was bad as well. I don't know why they called it that. Then they said the Taming of the Nine Tails and Fateful Encounters. I put that pretty high. That's when Naruto meets Kushina. I thought it was sweet. At 13, they had Kage Otsutsuki Strikes. Bad arc. No one likes Kaguya. 12, the 4th Great Ninja War, Attackers from Beyond. That's also confrontation. Wait, I don't know if I've read this article all the way through. 11, Konoha Crush. Acidine. Konoha Crush is not the best arc in part 1 of Naruto. It's not 11, that's for sure. 10, Land of Waves. Go fuck yourself. At number 9, we have the Kazekage Rescue. Is that where I put that? I put that at 10, actually. They weighted that higher than me, which is, I guess, fair. It's a good arc. Number 8, Akatsuki Suppression. Actually, I think that's around where I put that as well. Another good arc. 7, Birth of the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. Too high for that. 6, Assembly of the 5 Kage. Oh, that's where I put that. 5, Chunin Exams. 4, 4th Shinobi World Climax. Way too high. 3, Itachi Shinden. Book of Light and Darkness. That's a light novel adaptation. That is not manga canon. Okay, good. 2, The Master's Prophecy and Vengeance. They mean the fated battle between brothers. I'm starting to think this is AI generated. And then number 1, Pain and Salt. Okay, that's the article. That's all the time it gets.